UFC 287, Pereira versus Adesanya 2 just took place, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my reaction and breakdown to every single fight on the card and my overall event recap as well. I did terrible at predictions, I think a lot of people did, but let's start straight away with the early prelim opener of Sam Hughes versus Jaqueline Amorim. One of the biggest prospects in the women's strawweight division on the regional scene, absolutely demolishing all of her opponents on the regional scene, training out of ATT. She basically was about to win in the first round by rear naked choke. I picked her to win by rear naked choke in the first round, and she was on her way to doing it, cinching up so many attempts at a rear naked choke after getting a takedown early on and dominating the rest of that round. And she just couldn't finish the rear naked choke. 3 times over, she had it under the chin of Sam Hughes and had her hands connected together and was almost hiding the hand behind the head of Sam Hughes, but she just couldn't finish the rear naked choke. One of the craziest survivals of a rear naked choke attempt I've ever seen. It's just like Jaqueline Amorim doesn't have the squeeze able to finish a rear naked choke, I guess. Crazy. And then Sam Hughes won the second and the third round, and it turns out Jaqueline Amorim, who's been training her entire life for this moment out of ATT and is one of the best prospects in the women's strawweight division, has nothing outside of shooting takedowns for her jiu-jitsu to be pulled off and then pulling guard if she fails takedowns and laying on bottom in a body triangle. So really rough for Jaqueline Amorim. She thought she won at the end of the fight as well somehow by putting her hands up in the air. Really good survivability by Sam Hughes, and she came back to win the last 2 rounds dominantly, so good for her. She really battered Amorim in the third round as well, so good win. I was very surprised that Amorim couldn't finish that rear naked choke in the first. We move on. Steve Garcia versus Shayilan Nuerdanbieke. I picked Shayilan Nuerdanbieke to win. He was about to win in the first round by KO, dropped Steve Garcia badly, basically looked like he was out cold. Beat him up on the ground a little bit as well, where Steve Garcia looked like he went out cold a few more times on the ground. And then messed up the finish. Laid on top, didn't really do anything from that position. And then in round 2, Steve Garcia came back, landed a really nasty body kick or two, and a really nasty body shot as well that just folded Shayilan Nuerdanbieke. I believe Shayilan also got hurt on the feet at the end of round 1 as well, now that I'm remembering it. And just sort of blew his wad going for a finish and just really not picking his shots wisely against Steve Garcia in the first round, and then not shooting takedowns in the second round and trying to scrap it out on the feet, trying to get another KO, and ended up paying the price with a body shot, and Steve Garcia gets it done. Great win from him. We move on. Up the card, Ignacio Bahamondes versus Trey Ogden. I picked Ignacio Bahamondes to win this one by submission in the later rounds. He just picked apart Trey Ogden every single round of the fight. Round 2 was competitive, but I still gave it to Ignacio Bahamondes 30-27. Every single round of the fight, I think, went his way. Very closely in some cases, but in rounds 1 and 3, there was no debate about it whatsoever. He was chewing up the leg of Trey Ogden for the entire fight, pretty much. Non-stop. Every time you forgot about him doing it, he would chop right back at the leg of Trey Ogden and hurt it a little bit. And Ogden, you could see, was really having trouble because he likes to shoot takedowns, and he just couldn't put weight on that lead leg to drive into a takedown, so he was stuck on the feet with Bahamondes. He would land a nice left hook now and again, but it was just Bahamondes landing those leg kicks at range, landing better punches at range as well, landing front kicks to the body and stuff like that, and an occasional missed wheel kick. So very good performance by Ignacio Bahamondes. He got the decision win. Really good for him. Showed improvement. Showed really good composure over 3 rounds. And beat a tricky Trey Ogden by decision. We move on. Up the card, Lupita Godinez versus Cynthia Calvillo. Lupita Godinez won. I thought she won. Very close fight, to be honest with you. It was sort of a matter of, well, Cynthia Calvillo's landing more, but none of them are really that good. And then Lupita Godinez is picking her shots and landing really solid shots on Cynthia Calvillo. Calvillo was just throwing arm punches over and over again, 1-2s. Side kick to the body was landing for her now and again, I believe. But Lupita Godinez was landing like stinging shots on her face with like a pop 1-2 straight down the pipe. It was a close fight, but Lupi landed the better shots in rounds 1 and 3, and even got a takedown at the end of round 3 as well, where she got like a decent position on Cynthia Calvillo. I thought she won round 1 on damage. Round 2 could be hers as well. Round 3 it all could go to her. It's just a matter of Calvillo's punches seem to do literally nothing to Lupita Godinez. if they landed at that as well. But Lupita Godinez seemed to sting Calvillo with big, clean shots that definitely caught the judges' attention. So good win from her. She got it done. I said 29-28 decision, and she basically got it done by 29-28 decision. We move on to another fight on the card. Joe Pyfer versus Gerald Meerschaert. Wow. I was worried for a second that Joe Pyfer was going to lose this fight, even though I picked him to win by first round KO. Well, I think I changed it to decision eventually, because that's how worried I was that Meerschaert, the GOAT, was going to show up and change things around. I don't know what it was. I knew Meerschaert was going to lose as soon as the fight started. Don't know what it was. I was a little bit shaky. I was like, man, Meerschaert's been doing good recently. I'm not too sure about this one. But he looks like a man who was about to be KO'd in the first round for the majority of that fight. You know what I'm saying? Round one, I think Meerschaert was landing more and like going to inside leg kicks now and again and outside leg kicks and landing a few of them, but not really too many punches. And then Pyfer landed like a solid right hand on him early on in the round. And then towards the end of the round, he tagged him with a left hook right on the tip of the chin, followed up with a right hand against the cage, folded him to the canvas. And it was a really weird, awkward stoppage where he was like wanting the ref to jump in because Meerschaert's just covering up, not defending himself. And then he just kept having to go in for extra ground and pound. I don't think he wanted to hurt Meerschaert that badly, really, and that's what he was doing. But, yeah, it seemed like Meerschaert wanted out of there as soon as that shot landed on the tip of his chin. Sucks to be him. Great win from Joe Pyfer. He proved himself because Meerschaert is a guy who beats people that aren't really that good. So Joe Pyfer proved that he is really somewhat good in the middleweight division because Muradov couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, other good prospects in the middleweight division couldn't get past Meerschaert, but Pyfer gets it done. Big, strong guy for the division. Very powerful, very fast with his hands. Good performance. We move on up the card. Luana Pinheiro versus Michelle Waterson-Gomez. Had Michelle Waterson winning this one clear. Bad decision. Bad decision in my opinion here. I thought Michelle Waterson could have won every single round. She got the only takedown of the fight in the third, I believe it was. Clearly won the third round. No debate about that. There's no way any judge scored the third round to Luana Pinheiro. And she didn't get dropped. She got knocked off balance at the end of round one. And maybe the judge gave it to Pinheiro because of that. But outside of that, Gomez dropped... Well, Waterson dropped Pinheiro with a front kick to the face, even if she was a bit off balance anyway. So, I just think Michelle Waterson should have won that fight, to be honest with you. It was pretty unlucky. I know Pinheiro had moments where she looked like she rocked Waterson, but Waterson was consistently outstriking her and landing the better shots for the majority of the fight. So, there were a few moments where Pinheiro had oh my god, maybe Waterson's a bit hurt by that. But outside of that, I thought Waterson was in complete control. Sad to see her lose this one, but the UFC got what they wanted, a upcoming contender in the women's strawweight division that they didn't get with Jaqueline and Amorim. So, yeah, I thought the judges were a bit off, but it was a decently fun fight where they both landed some good shots. Waterson should have won, but lost. It was close. It wasn't a brutal robbery. I just think it was a wrong decision. We move on to another fight up the card, which was Chris Curtis versus Kelvin Gastelum. I went with Chris Curtis winning this one. I think if this was a 5-rounder, he might have ended up doing so because in round 3, he was really starting to put Kelvin Gastelum in trouble. I don't know who scored it 30-27 Gastelum. That's weird, to be honest with you. And I think once Curtis heard that scorecard, he was like, oh, I've definitely lost. Because he clearly lost the first round. Curtis has a really side-on style with like a bit of a Philly shell going on. That's how he boxes. And it really leaves him very vulnerable to leg kicks because he doesn't have the footwork of Wonderboy to have that side-on style. He's a bit more ploddy. And Gastelum took advantage of that. And I'm going to say it right now. Gastelum looked like Henry Cejudo out there. Early on in the fight, he looked a lot like Henry Cejudo, following a game plan, 1-2s down the pipe, almost a karate stance at moments, bouncing in and out. He looked really good, and that was definitely Cejudo's influence. And he looked good. Round 2... Close round, honestly. I gave it to Gastelum because of the ground and pound that he landed on Curtis. But outside of that, Curtis won that round. But the problem was they head clashed and Gastelum's forehead went right into Curtis's chin and basically dropped him off balance badly. Concussed him a little bit. It should have been a knockdown, but because it was a headbutt, they didn't call it a knockdown. But there was a head clash and Curtis went down and received like 10, 15 ground and pound shots. So that's what won Kelvin Gastelum the round. Good for him. If anyone deserves to be on the right end of a head clash, it's Gastelum at this point in his career. He's had a rough go of things recently and Third round, it was a crazy war. Not the numbers I was expecting to see, 13-30, 20-23, but round 3 was a really, really fun fight. So this was definitely fight of the night. It got fight of the night because of it. And Kelvin Gastelum did what he needed to do. I was really happy for him in the post-fight speech as well, where he just had that moment of just emotion, like, screaming that he finally got a win because it was so rough for him. So good for Kelvin Gastelum and good for both of them for getting an extra 50k each. We move on. Up the card, Christian Rodriguez versus Raul Rosas Jr. Exposed, mate. Exposed. Straight up exposed. He almost had a couple submission attempts in the first round, but he was trying to go for a face crank non-stop. All this talk about being the youngest champ in the UFC, that went right out the window. Right out the window real quick against Christian Rodriguez. I know Rodriguez missed weight, and that's always going to be a factor when it comes to scrambling and winning positions. He did look a little bigger than Raul Rosas Jr. out there. Which is hard to do because Raul is a big bantamweight himself. But yeah, man, Raul had one good round where he got the back and kept trying takedown attempts. But I said this, Rodriguez is going to win this fight if he survives round 1. Because Raul Rosas was trying so hard with takedowns to get nothing out of them. Like, so hard. He was giving it his all to get a takedown, to get nothing out of it. Like, please, I'll do anything to get this takedown. Big lift, big slam, drag him around. And he just wasn't getting what he wanted. Eventually, he did get the back position and sink in the body triangle and go for a face crank or two. But he didn't end up getting the sub. So he won the first round. But round 2 and 3, you saw exactly what it was. Rosas Jr. couldn't shoot the takedowns well enough. Kept shooting the same old single leg. Rodriguez became a little bit too aware of it. Rosas had nothing for him on the feet whatsoever. Slow as hell on the feet. He threw like a really slow motion spinning back kick to the body. A slow-mo spinning back fist at one point as well. And I'm surprised Rodriguez didn't expose him more on the feet. But yeah, Rodriguez stayed calm the whole time. Got his breath in bad situations. And just made Rosas work for nothing pretty much in round 2. And then dominated round 3. So really good job by Christian Rodriguez. Eventually putting the body triangle on Rosas in many moments in rounds 2 and 3. So good for him. Rodriguez gets it done. Not much of hype behind him. So we just lose a lot of hype on Raul Rosas. And now Rodriguez, I guess, gets a bit of hype from it. So good for him. It's not like it's not like when Vera beat O'Malley. I don't think either of them are at that level of fame. But good job by Christian Rodriguez. Unexpected, but Rosas ain't got shit outside of a couple big effort takedowns in round 1. We move on. Up the card, Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Holland won and was arguably winning. But I will say this. He didn't look good. He did not look good in this fight. And I know Ponzinibbio is a difficult fighter. And I'm not going to go too hard on Kevin Holland here. He landed a really good back fist in round 1 that hurt Ponzinibbio. The numbers that they're saying here seem a bit off because Ponzinibbio was landing some really nasty leg kicks, but a lot of his punches were missing, to be fair. Holland dropped him at the end of round 1 with a back fist after missing a punch, after Ponzinibbio was holding onto his single leg. Landed a back fist, hurt Ponzinibbio bad, and then went to follow up on the ground afterwards. So I gave him round 1 because of that moment, which is rightfully so. He had a big moment at the end, so he won that one. Round 2, even though it says Holland outlanded him, I thought Ponzinibbio's leg kicks were the most effective part of that round. He was chewing up the legs of Holland, and I said, when I was talking about a potential Masvidal versus Holland fight earlier, which now will never happen, and we'll get to that in a second, I said Holland has a problem with leg kicks, man, and these top welterweights are going to figure that out. They really are going to figure that out. And Ponzinibbio figured it out and chopped at his legs non-stop. And Holland got the third round KO, landed a solid left hook right on the chin of Ponzinibbio. And Ponzinibbio complained about the stoppage, but he went face first and wasn't moving for like a good 5 seconds. So really good win from Kevin Holland. Not the best of performances. Looked like he can be exploited by some other fighters, but good win nevertheless. And we needed him to get a win. So I don't know what's going to be next for him. Some other name, probably Neil Magny in the welterweight division should be next for Kevin Holland. We'll see if he can get it done against him. But good stuff. Maybe even a Jeff Neal rematch. He beat Jeff Neal on the regional scene by KO. I'd love to see that one ran back as long as it gets Holland back into the rankings. So good job, Ponzinibbio. His chin's just not what it was earlier in his career, let's be real. We move on. Up the card, Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez. Wow, Rob Font. Never saw it coming. I thought Font was done towards like the later part. I thought earlier on in his career he was a dangerous man. Rob Font, very dangerous man. But it seemed like recently he's lost all the steam in his shots. You know, he hasn't really put together much heat on his punches against Aldo or Vera. And it's almost like he had a little bit of a throwback fight. Like, I'm going to put heat on my shots. And I'm not going to let this guy get off the hook. If I'm stinging him with my jab, I'm making sure to capitalize off of it. And Yanez got absolutely derailed as a hype train as well. He got stung up. He landed good shots back. Really good shots back early on. And it was actually a bit closer of a fight early on. It wasn't like domination off the get-go from Font like I thought it was going to be. I thought Font was going to be picking at him the whole fight, and then Yanez would drop him in round 2, hurt him in round 3, similar to the Vera fight and the Aldo fight. But, yeah, Font just stuck it on him. Both guys got to work. Both guys landed really good shots. And then the jab of Font started to bother Yanez. Really bother Yanez. And I knew it would happen, but I didn't think it would stumble him backwards and hurt him. But it did stumble him backwards and hurt him pretty badly. And Font then timed his jab and timed a really nice cuffing inside right hook right on the tip of the chin of Yanez as Yanez was like leaning into it. Perfect shot. Down goes Yanez. Follow-up shots afterwards. And Yanez, I hate to say it because I did like him as a prospect. And I don't mind his personality. Was a really salty loser. He was very salty about it. Extremely salty about it. He didn't like the loss. He was really like, you know when you don't like something, you're just talking to talk? That's what happened with Yanez. He really didn't like that from Rob Font. Really didn't. And he got hurt badly, finished. Justifiable stoppage, by the way. He wasn't doing anything to better his position. But he just was waffling and talking about, like, I don't even know what he was talking about. He was just talking at nothing. Like, really in a state of, like, I don't even know what he was in it, like craziness, insanity. Like he was just talking because he didn't want to cope with what just happened. It was kind of sad to see, to be honest with you, but great win by Rob Font. And yeah, good for him, man, because he took a whole bunch of damage and it's good for him to get back in the win column and get a performance bonus. So really good for him. We move on. Up the card, Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. I wanted to do a separate video for this, but it is 8:30 a.m., so I want to just bundle it in with this one. Masvidal is done, and I'm kind of glad he retired because it looked like a performance from a guy who should retire. That's all I'm going to say about it. Round 1 was debatable over who won because Masvidal landed the better shots at range on the feet early on, landed a bunch of great leg kicks, and Gilbert Burns got like a takedown at the end and went for a bunch of hammer fists, and I was like, okay, I don't know how many of those hammer fists landed, but because he finished strong, they might give the round to him. I could see them giving the round to Masvidal because he was winning the whole round up until that point with his leg kicks. Round 2, Burns got the takedown early on. Or, well, at some point in the round later on. And it was just tough for Masvidal to get back up from it. Really tough. Burns actually said he was greasing. I saw that headline. Apparently Burns is accusing Masvidal of greasing because he felt so slippery. And Burns is he's not going to just say that after Masvidal retired to disrespect him in any way. He's not going to make that up. And Burns has grappled with so many people in grappling tournaments. I'm sure he knows when someone's greasing and what they feel like when they are. And to be fair, Masvidal was sweating a bunch. Sweating a bunch come round 2, which is uncharacteristic. So I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to get one over on Burns during his last fight. But yeah, Masvidal just got outdone in round 2. Burns started landing some really crisp right hands on him. Masvidal's timing seemed off. He seemed slow. He gassed in round 2 really quickly, which is crazy to see. He gassed in round 2 really quickly in round 2, and he was throwing shots. And it was like, God, there's no steam on that. There's no technique on that. He's just winging arms at Gilbert Burns, and Burns is stinging him back. Round 3, after Burns got the takedown in round 2 and secured that round for himself. Round 3, Burns dominated round 3. Masvidal landed some good shots back, but they were nothing like Burns' shots. Burns' shots got Masvidal wobbling, got him hurt on the feet, cracked him again a few times and had him wobbled at another moment and then started pouring it on and trying to get a KO, and he just didn't want to be risky and get caught back because we know Burns has been chinned before and he's not got the granitest of chins, but you know, he did show a bit of it against Chimaev, but you don't want to have to show a good chin, really, if you don't have to. So Burns eventually went for a takedown again in round 3, got the takedown, and won that round pretty comfortably on top for the rest of it, and holding Masvidal up against the cage and landing a bunch of good shots on him on the feet. I'm glad Masvidal retired, dude. I don't know what it was, but I'll say it right now. The Masvidal that showed up on a few days' notice, I said it during my Fight Companion, the Masvidal that showed up on a few days' notice against Gilbert Burns, the Masvidal that showed up on a few days' notice against Gilbert Burns, against Kamaru Usman, the first time, couple of days' notice, Masvidal had better cardio and was in better shape than the Masvidal that showed up against Gilbert Burns with a full training camp. And that's a fact. For Usman, on a couple days' notice, took the flight over, cut all the weight. He had more hustle and drive in that fight to escape takedowns than he did in this one. It's crazy what a difference a year and a KO can make. Yeah, I'm upset he retired because I wanted to see more of him, but he did look like a man who needed to retire. And it wasn't a crazy impressive win from Burns, but he got the win, and that's all he needed to do. So respect to Gilbert Burns. I don't think he earned a title shot from it whatsoever, so I guess they'll be doing him versus Belal Muhammad. Makes a little bit of sense. Jorge Masvidal, respect, legend of the game. But yeah, did look like a man who needs to hang it up. And yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll see him in BKFC in the future. Probably. We move on. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. I gave Alex Pereira round 1. He outlanded Israel Adesanya. Every judge gave Adesanya round 1, of course. And I gave Pereira round 2. And then boom. Pereira's out. Great win from Israel Adesanya. I'm upset with him that he says it's settled now and there's no need for a trilogy, and Pereira now needs to work his way back up. I thought he'd be eager to try and get another win if he really thinks he's the better fighter, but he landed that one shot on Pereira in round... That was like the first good punch he landed in the fight outside of one in round 1, I believe. And Pereira, it was the same shot that hurt him in round 1 of the last fight. Right behind the ear, right above the ear area. Boom. Right hand from Israel Adesanya after Pereira misses that left hook. Lands the left hook. I think he landed it, but Adesanya was covered up. Really good performance from Pereira. Really bad fight IQ at the end of it to chase a finish there when you know you've got 3 extra rounds. That was a banked Pereira round if he just waited 40 seconds after that sequence and thought, okay, back to leg kicking at range. That was a Pereira round, straight up in the bank. And he should have won round 1 because he outlanded Adesanya according to the stats, 20-15. But he chased the finish on an Adesanya who weren't really that rocked. Yeah, you caught him with a few good shots, but he weren't really that rocked, dude. And he went after him. He went after him at the start of round 2 as well. So maybe he in his mind was like, I don't know if I feel too good. I'm not sure if I got the cardio to go 5 rounds. I'm going to chase the finish because we never saw him chase him round 2 of the last fight. And he saw Adesanya stumble a few times there as well. But yeah, Israel Adesanya lands the KO blow. 1 shot, that's all it takes. Clean on the chin. Very good KO from Israel Adesanya. Was getting beaten before that, but Alex Pereira was getting beaten before the last fight and then got the KO in the 5th round anyway. So, yeah, 3-1 Alex Pereira. Israel Adesanya calls that settled. His mindset, I guess. We'll see what happens in the future. Maybe they will meet again at light heavyweight. Who knows? This sport is so unpredictable, but I doubt Pereira's going to have too many fun matchups on his hands. You know what I mean? I really doubt Pereira's going to have too many fun matchups on his hands in that division at 35 years of age after a KO loss like that. So, we'll see. I don't know what's next for Adesanya. I don't see Blachowicz cutting down to 185. And he needs a lot of time to set that up, right? He's going to have to change his entire anatomy to get that one done. Other than that, though, Duplessis, no. Whittaker's lost twice to Adesanya, no. Probably Whittaker versus Duplessis. I think a trilogy is kind of the only thing that makes sense. And I won't pick Pereira to win it, but it's still enticing because he's the only man that can outstrike Adesanya for any moment of a fight. Whittaker beat him in the rematch, but whatever, dude. It doesn't make no sense. It's all fine. I'm fine. Okay? Alex Pereira just got a little bit too overconfident there in round 2 and paid the ultimate price. Great job by Israel Adesanya. Landed that 1 clean shot in round 2. Sat him down. That's all it took. 1 clean punch. That's all it took. He was waiting for it. You know, he didn't really commit with many punches before that. He was just kicking with Pereira. Pereira was outdoing him at that a little bit, but Adesanya was landing good kicks to the body in round 1. Pereira Dude, the fight IQ on him. I know he's 7-1 in MMA, but come on, bro. You had a lot of experience in kickboxing. Maybe it's the gloves. His experience is in big gloves. So he's like, I can take one and take these risks. In MMA, you can't take those risks. So in round 2, if you're Pereira, you should be like, landed a good combo on him. Let me move away and get back to my leg kicks and jabs. Let me move away and get back to what I was doing. I've just won this round. We'll go into round 3. But for whatever reason, he got a slight glimpse that Adesanya might have been affected and went straight after him with everything he had. Solid shot by Adesanya. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. We'll bring it back next weekend with some good picks. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. I wanted the boy from the favela who grew up with nothing to get it done. It was a big thing for me. It would make me so happy if he got it done. The spoiled rich kid with servants that had everything handed to him on a silver platter did instead. That's the world, man. I'll get over it. Like and subscribe. See you later. Goodbye. Toodle pip.